Welcome everybody. My name is Rick Meyers. I co-own AAA Hall with my wife Nicole. But today I'm here as the board chair of the chamber. Thank you all for being here. The Lower Bucks County Chamber of Commerce is an essential investment for our businesses and nonprofits in the area. We have three pillars: education, networking, and advocacy. And we are all in the room right here to learn about a very specific topic, family paid leave, and how that affects our businesses and our employees, how that helps retain employees. And as the chamber, as a leading voice of businesses in the community, what better place to find some valuable information and resources. Thank you, Dan O'Brien from Children's First. If you have any questions following this or you're watching on Zoom, please reach out to Dan. He'd be happy to answer any questions for you. And I appreciate everybody here, so I'm just going to shout out who we have here. We have Donna Cooper, Executive Director from Children's First, who will be moderating this event. Thank you very much. We have Representative Joe Hogan, Representative Jim Prokopiak. Thank you very much for both being here. We also have Georgann, Berger, McKenna, which is Chief Human Resource of Penn Community Bank, and Matthew Domenick, owner of Domenick Financial. So we're going to hear some great perspectives from these folks. Without further ado, Donna, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
So this is our goal today, and is that like a Zoom camera? People are.
We're going to send out the recording later. Yeah.
Oh, but like, where do people see? Are
They see you.
Oh, so the goal today is to sort of introduce what's happening in terms of the conversation about paid family medical leave in Harrisburg, give you a context of what's going on in other states, and really hear your questions and sort of have a robust conversation. You know, no policy proposal, no legislation is perfect until it gets over the end zone. So we have time to make things better, and we really want to make sure businesses have an opportunity to be in the conversation, know what's going on, and offer their guidance and input. So I do want to thank the state representatives who are here today. Joe Hogan has been a really great friend of Children First, so thank you very much on early childhood issues. Particularly, we're really grateful. Welcome to the new member of the House. We know that K-12 issues are really near and dear to you, and we look forward to working with you on these issues as well as the members of the Chamber. So thanks to the Chamber so much. So I'm going to just sort of walk through what's going on in the paid family and medical leave landscape. So I don't know how many people know, but we have the FMLA in federal law, and it says that companies with more than 50 employees have to make sure that employees get time off when they have a baby or when there's somebody sick, but they don't get paid, right? So in 14 states, people are now receiving income, whether it's a business owner and a sole proprietor or all the employees in the companies, depending on the state. Different size of companies are sort of eligible or required to be in the program. But there are 14 states that have paid leave, assuming you count DC as a state, but we'll just say that's a territory for now. For those of us in Bucks County, this is really real, right? You guys know Jersey has a very robust paid family and medical leave program. In northeastern Pennsylvania, where they border New York, they also have a robust paid family and medical leave program. And then Delaware and Maryland recently built theirs out. So pretty much almost every corner of the state, except for the western border, is got a competitive disadvantage when it comes to recruiting employees, particularly women who are in the childbearing ages. What these programs have in common is that they offer some wage reimbursement for the time taken off. They limit the time taken off, so there's predictability to that. And they are basically a really essential investment in bonding for babies. That's why Children First is so into this work, because the research on babies and the impact of them spending time with their mother and father in those first 12 weeks is so compelling. Brain development, relationship development. I cannot speak highly enough about the rewards to babies of paid family and medical leave. But it's also a great benefit for employees because it enables them to focus on work when they return to work. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to give you some specifics. But I just wanted to give you a sense, and maybe you can relate to this. Some of your companies may pay paid family leave right now, but most small employers in the state can't. So 66% of the employees in the state don't have access, aren't able to be in workplaces where there's paid family and medical leave. Basically, larger companies can do it. Smaller companies, it's too expensive for them to carry that burden alone. They don't have enough of an insurance pool to spread the cost over, so they can't really afford to do that. So what we found, I wanted to share some business data with you, and this research comes from a variety of places, and it's really hard to read. This is from a National Bureau of Economic Research, so I don't know how many of you are familiar with the National Bureau of Economic Research, but heavily peer-reviewed economist papers. You can decide whether you think economists are peer-reviewable, but nevertheless, looking at what's the data show. And in California, New Jersey, and Rhode Island, that after they passed the bill, within 1 year of the passage or more, California's had many years, businesses have reported seeing increases in productivity of their employees. And again, that's really associated with the fact that when they come back to work, they have enough stability at home, the kid maybe is in an infant toddler program, they have enough stability at home so that they can focus on work. And these are studies that are done comparing employer surveys with neighboring states of California, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. The Boston Consulting Group, which basically works a lot with large businesses and consulting with them, it found that talent retention is the main reason that large companies are stepping forward and doing paid family and medical leave without legislation. So in Pittsburgh, when we had this event, PNC was a partner of ours, and with the bank here today, and PNC was very clear. The reason that they offer paid family and medical leave is they want to compete for the best talent. And given that TD Bank, which is right across the river, domiciled in New Jersey, has paid family and medical leave, creates a lot of competition for talent in the financial sector here. Small businesses in these states have found that it is important for them to be able to attract businesses from others. One of the reasons that PNC is in this game is because they were actually recruiting from small banks. They were actively recruiting from smaller employers with a better benefit package. And smaller employers just can't carry this cost, and the benefit of the paid family leave program is it spreads the cost across all employers and employees and makes it affordable. So it's harder for small businesses currently to hire. The other thing is people are often wondering, like, once a paid leave program passes, how do businesses respond? Now, I have talked to businesses in New York and New Jersey, but this data is from surveys done of employers and employees in those states. They're not my personal conversations. And the one paper found that, people are really worried, it's going to be complicated, it can't do the paperwork, it's going to mean that lots of people take more time off than they usually do. And what they found, particularly in New York, is that there was no significant adverse change in terms of the employment practices for employers. New York State structured their program pretty well, so employers could do the paperwork easily, and they did not find people were using the maximum amount of paid leave available. And so when you look at utilization rates, for sure after pregnancy, people are using all that's available to them, but on the medical leave side, people are using far less than the legislation provides. New Jersey, I will say, New Jersey went through a bad couple of years and then restructured their program, and now businesses find it's very easy to work with. It is the case that the New Jersey Department of Labor wasn't sufficiently staffed up when they passed the bill, and employers and brokers had a really hard time, and that's gotten cleaned up. California, that's the longest running paid leave program. You see businesses saying that small businesses were less likely to report negative effects of small paid family and medical leave. So we're just trying to emphasize that you have large states where this requirement is in place and businesses are not seeing deleterious response. Same with Rhode Island. So survey after 1 year, surveys after 5 years, they show business satisfaction. In PA, as I already said, 66% of our employees aren't getting paid family and medical leave. 71% of our companies are not doing paid family and medical leave. And when you talk to them, they say, I can't afford to do this. If I were to buy this from my broker, it's too expensive because my experience and my program is too small. I need a way to spread this out. But 50% of employers with greater than 5,000 employees offer paid family and medical leave. That's an estimate. This data is not perfect. It could be a little bit higher, could be a little bit lower. I will say that comes from insurance industry data, and it's not like we have a publicly available data source to verify that, but that's what their data shows. So, and their data also shows that about a quarter of businesses with 500 or fewer employees in PA offer paid family and medical leave. So again, you're in these really big employment sectors. What we're talking here is in Pennsylvania, our program will probably be towards the higher end of this, which is how much is it going to cost to do this? That's the premium, right? In some states, the premium is low as, let's say, 45 cents of every payroll dollar. I'm sorry, 0.45 cents of every payroll dollar is going to paid leave. In some states, it's $1.10, 1.1%, not $1.10. Pennsylvania will probably end up somewhere between 0.9 and 1% of total payroll going to support paid family and medical leave to enable us to get the benefits that are described in the bill. In nearly every state but one, it's shared, employer and employee. So an employer is going to pay 0.5, and an employee is going to pay 0.5% of payroll for the program. Some states, California employees cover it all. And in fact, the bill that we'll talk about in the Senate has it that way. And in other states where there are voluntary programs, the employers are covering 100% of the cost where there's a voluntary program. In 12 states, which we would be the 13th, employers can use their private broker. You don't have to buy your paid family and medical leave benefits from the state. Whoever your employee benefit broker is for benefit services, you buy it from them if you want. If you don't, you could buy it from the state. But the level of benefit and the amount of premium is standard across the public and the private sector and set by an actuary firm to make sure that it's solved. So this is a real important strategy for increasing business for brokers and insurance companies. So this is how this would work. You could choose from your commercial carrier, you can be self-insured, or you could rely on the state fund. So there are other benefits in the state that operate the same way, and it creates an opportunity for ease of administration for whatever your business is already doing. So one of the things that we like to stress is that for brokers and insurance companies, this is a real new book of business. And when you create a universal expectation that every employee in the state has paid family and medical leave, it creates a new business opportunity for the insurance sector in general. So what's going on in Harrisburg? So Casey Tomlinson, you guys know Casey. She is the Republican lead co-sponsor in the House with a Western PA House member, Dan Miller. In the Senate, you guys might have heard of Maria Collette. She's in Monco. So she is the Democratic sponsor in the Senate, and the Republican sponsor is Devin Robinson from Allegheny County. And so we have bipartisan support in both chambers. And the Senate, as you know, is a Republican chamber, and so Devin's the lead sponsor. The House is a Democratic chamber, so Dan is the lead sponsor. In the House bill, this cost of the premium that I described, about 0.1% of payroll, would be split 50-50 between employers and employees. And small businesses with 15 or less employees, the business owner would be exempted from their contribution. So we're trying to decrease the financial burden on a small business, so their employees would be covered, but they would not, as an individual business owner, make a contribution. Their employees still pay in. And in the Senate version, the 100% of the cost is borne by the employees. And as we move through this process, there'll have to be a compromise between the House and the Senate somewhere. As I mentioned, the majority of states have this share 50-50, and all the states that have passed around us are 50-50. New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. Basically, these words should look pretty similar. These are the allowable uses for paid family medical leave. They look very much like FMLA. However, there are two additional attributes to the Pennsylvania bill. But I think was Casey the main lead on safe leave? Mahalik. So some House members from the Republican caucus added that we wanted to make sure that victims of domestic violence could be relied on paid family and medical leave for time that they need for safety, and that also people who are dealing with deployment in the military. They're very small. I can tell you, for instance, in pregnancy leave, so bonding leave, of all employees in these other states, about 2.8% of all employees use that leave. And you can imagine safe leave and the military deployment much smaller than that. This is what's in both bills, 20 weeks for maternity, bonding, and 12 weeks for family care or military-related needs. But you couldn't, it's not 32 weeks in total, it's 20 weeks in total. And again, in these states, in the other states that have that, this is pretty consistent. Some states might be 19 weeks or 16 weeks, they're not very far off. Utilization rates for the sick leave are much lower than the allowable leave. You have to have worked at least 18 weeks in the 12-month period for which you're claiming, so a new employee can't just sign up and then go out the next day on leave. And you have to have earned a paycheck, so at least $2,700. And these are basically protections that the insurance industry suggests be in place to make sure that the actuarial assessments can be sound and that people aren't signing up for jobs for the purpose of using benefits. Right now, our view is that, is that we are losing out great talent because we don't have access to people who could otherwise take a job in Jersey. So I'll give you an example of that in a very concrete way. There was a Bucks County resident who was a young woman who was in her 30s, and she was offered an editor job at the Philadelphia Inquirer. She was also offered an editor job at the Trenton Times. She took the Trenton Times, specifically because of pay leave. So, she understood what was going on. So we're losing talent. Some of these businesses, if you're in the insurance sector, you will have heard of Sun Life. They are a very big carrier of paid leave policies. Patagonia, which is in northeastern PA, we don't know what Patagonia is, but they actually have a warehousing system here. Duolingo, which is a tech company. These are companies who have signed up and let our lawmakers know we would like to see this happen. And then we are currently recruiting businesses to lend their voice to this, to say we see the benefit of doing this, especially small businesses. They can't afford to do this alone, and so we are increasingly recruiting small businesses to let lawmakers know that they support paid family and medical leave, and we would invite any members of the chamber to add their name to that letter. And we have in this link that we'll send out afterwards, people can sign up. And I think at this point, do we want to take questions or do we want to hear from other folks?
I think we can go to.
Yeah. So I want to ask Joe, Hogan, and first, if you have any comments or thoughts, if you want to come up here so that way the Zoom people can see you.
I think it's Amy can also tell.
Oh, okay.
I'm staying here.
Okay, you stay there. Okay. So Representative Hogan, please offer your thoughts.
Yeah, Donna, thanks for doing that. I think the important thing to highlight with this initially is that this is a bipartisan idea. This is something that has been around, even as, if I recall, over 10 years ago, Marco Rubio was trying to talk about this in the United States Senate. So Wendy Thomas, a former representative from Northampton Township, she was on one of these bills talking about this issue. So it seems like we may actually get some movement this year, some bipartisan movement, so that's important. Speaking personally here, I asked my wife yesterday, she works for a large pharmaceutical company, what do you offer? What is her company? And I think it was like 3 months of paid leave or something like that, which a company that's worth billions of dollars can afford something like that. Another friend of mine literally had his second son, him and his wife, 2 weeks ago, and he had absolutely nothing. Now he works from home, he works for a larger international engineering company, but he had nothing to do. Fortunately, again, wife was able to stay home, he works from home, so he was able to make it flexible, but these are the real types of issues. And last year, my father lost a battle with cancer, and we're dealing with, I'm in a position where I have some flexibility with what my day looks like, but my brother, who's a union carpenter, did not. He had to stay home with my father. He was missing work for the day. My sister did not. She had to stay home and take those appointments because I was in Harrisburg or something. She missed out on a day's work of pay. I was able to go to the VA with them. I was able to sit there with them and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm lucky in that perspective, but I know obviously there's a lot of other families that are not in that position. And I think I'll kind of just wrap this up is I take a perspective when I look at legislation and issues in Pennsylvania specifically of not children first, families first. So you can steal that idea if you like. Pennsylvania has a demographic crisis. We all know that. It's an aging population and we're losing younger people. They're graduating college or going somewhere else for one reason or another. They're taking jobs in New Jersey instead of Pennsylvania. And we have to find a way, and we have to kind of review how the entire Commonwealth, our policies are to attract these people and keep families in this area. Bucks County is very desirable. A lot of people are going to keep coming to Bucks County. That doesn't apply to the rest of the state. And some pockets need a lot of help. They need a lot of support and other programs to encourage people to move there and to encourage them to stay there. So I think this is early childhood education is another aspect of that. We need to make sure that people that are working can go to work. But this is the other side of that equation, so that if and when my wife and I have children, I can know that she's going to have enough time to take care of the child. I'm going to have the flexibility that I need to take care of the child. God forbid, family member gets sick or something like that. We're in that position, but I think it's for a lot of people, it's going to be peace of mind. And we have to be able to compete in Pennsylvania, and I think we're going to find some sort of bipartisan solution to move forward on this. I think it's always great when the Senate has an idea it wants to run and the House has an idea it wants to run, because somewhere there's a compromise in there. And I think we agree on the solution, it's just how we get there. But thank you guys for doing this, and look forward to working with you over the next couple of months on it. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So the newly minted State House member, Representative Prokopiak, we would love to know what your thoughts are.
Well, I look at it first, echoing what many of the comments that Representative Hogan has made in terms of this is good for families, good for workers, but it's also about maintaining a competitive, being competitive with these other states. When we look at statistics that show that 4 out of 5 of millennials and Gen Zs basically say they're more willing to take a job that has, in a state that has paid family leave or has a job that provides these protections. Well, guess what? We're losing an advantage to that. I live in Bucks County. Not only are we competing with New Jersey, we're competing with New York. Go to Trenton Station any morning of the week, you won't be able to get on the station because people are going to New York. Well, it's a competitive advantage to New York. It's a competitive advantage to New Jersey. And we need those millennials and those Gen Z workers staying here and working here and providing for their families here. And if we're not providing that sort of benefit to them, they're going to go someplace else. And once they go there, they're more likely to leave here and go someplace else. And that hurts our economy, that hurts our families, that hurts our school districts, that hurts our municipalities. All those types of things are important to stay here. We need to do a lot. And one of these things, I think, is as Representative Hogan said, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. I mean, this was an issue that the Trump administration pushed forward when they were talking about. This is something that businesses need to stay competitive with those other states. And if we don't do it, we're going to lose that. And we can't lose that next generation of worker. We can't lose them from being the people who are raising their families here and paying their taxes here. We need them to stay here and do those types of things here. It's also, I worked for a large corporation that did not provide this, and people had to use their own PTO. And then ultimately you get an email from people saying this person has cancer, and will you donate some of your PTO to provide them? And basically what happens is other employees are providing that, and this is a large corporation who didn't provide this type of benefit. And so employees are saying, well, I've got a week that I can give to this person because I work with them on this and that type of stuff. That's really not what we should have to rely on. We shouldn't have to rely on the charity of others to ensure that we can take care of our families. And I think this is a way that we can provide sort of that financial stability for those people who do get sick, or as we see the aging of our parents, being able to provide for them in their own homes if that's necessary. So those are the, I'm in favor of providing these protections. I believe it provides such an important benefit, not just to our families, but also to our economy. And so that's why I support it.
So it's so refreshing to hear Republican and Democrat agree on a policy agenda item. We read a lot of the national news, and it doesn't feel like that could ever happen. Bucks County is a place where that can happen, which is great. And so thank you so much. And I think it's also important to hear the voices of businesses and people in the industry, and then we can open up for a conversation. So I'm really grateful that Georgann, Berger, McKenna is here from Penn National Bank. I want to say you guys have been incredible in this community as a philanthropist, as a leader, as a voice for incredible things that happen for families in this community, whether it's through the United Way or the Opportunity Council or your own drives. It's just really great. And I want to thank you for being here. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are.
Thank you, and thanks for your kind words about Penn Community Bank. So when Marissa first reached out to me, and then I subsequently talked to Dan, it was very intriguing for me as the Director of Human Resources to learn more about this initiative. If I didn't think it was worthwhile or helpful to the bank as an employer or to our team members, I would have said, no thanks. But I probably have more questions than answers as an employer, but always looking for, what we can do as an employer to, we like our employees to come to work and focus on the work at hand and not have to worry about everything else, their medical benefits, or what happens if I go out on leave, what happens if my parents get sick, how do I pay for my education. We feel that they're more productive if we can provide as much as possible related to those benefits and have our folks focus on being productive at work. So to me, this is part of that offering, and we do compete for talent with a number of industries. Certainly the larger financial institutions. I was telling Dan the other day that we have a great story, we're local, we're a mutual, we give back to the community. It's still, when you're negotiating someone to come to work for you, it is all about what are you going to pay me and what are the benefits. And that works to a degree, but it comes down to I have to be able to compete with Bank of America, PNC, TD, et cetera, because people want to get paid and have benefits to do the job. So, some of the questions I have, obviously, is nothing is free. Who pays for it? How is it funded? How does it align with some of the other leaves? The protected leave, like FMLA is protected 12 weeks. This looks like it might be a 20-week program. So then what happens? Is that protected 20 weeks, or does it drop off at the 12? What are we allowed to do as an employer? Not allowed to do. Those are some of the questions.
Great.
That I have. I don't have the answers to them. I come seeking those, and I know that things get worked out through negotiation. And also, there's usually a period where people can weigh in, employers and voters can weigh in on, why they think it should be a certain way. So I from an employer, we would look for some level of consistency between the leaves for administration purposes, and it's just ease of operation and answering questions. So employees know, what to expect. In short, before we have done, as an employer, a number of things to address this issue beyond the 12 weeks protected leave. We have provided, employer paid 2 weeks. We have allowed team members to bank days that they don't use in PTO to carry over up to 80 hours. So we have the 80 hours that the employer pays, the 80 hours that the employees save as a help. We have the disability insurances, which we pay for the premiums, short-term and long-term. But that's if your leave is related to giving birth or some other medical condition on your own. It doesn't address what happens if you're, my mom just passed away a year ago. I understand certainly trying to keep your parent, aging parent or sick parent in their home and providing care for them. It's tremendously expensive. And you need to be there for certain things. And having some flexibility at work allows for that. We have a hybrid work environment. So I'll be honest with you, every Friday, I drove to New Jersey and worked out of my mom's house. So I could be there overseeing things of that nature. So that's been helpful to our team members. But if you work in retail banking, it's a retail operation. You do not have that luxury. So we have all kinds of situations that we deal with. I'm talking too long, but we've tried to figure out how to do it in what we could afford to do for 300 team members. And right now it's kind of a mishmash of different things. I will tell you that when we implemented the 2-week leave, you might have thought we were giving away millions of dollars. And it benefited we have a 66% female workforce. 33%, 34%, whatever the math is, men, but the men benefit, they want to stay home with their babies too, which is, they have sick parents too. So, you know, the reaction that we got was very overwhelmingly positive. It did not increase the number of people who took advantage.
Yeah.
I have the numbers
Yeah.
to prove that. You know, we didn't go from 45 people that normally take it in a year, which is about 15% of our workforce, to 50%. It happened. It's just knowing that it's there,
Exactly.
and I could use it as a hack if I have to, was the greatest benefit that we could provide by giving 80 hours of full-time pay. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine what the 20
Yeah.
weeks would do.
Yeah. So that's interesting, peace
Yeah.
of mind, like Representative Hogan said, it gave people the peace of mind. Very quickly, so could we come back to your questions? Is that
Sure.
right? So they were great questions and I want to answer them, but I want to recognize that, you know, Rick may have some comments as well or questions, so let's get those on the table.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I have two hats I'm going to put on today. I'm going to put on the board chair hat and speak generally as from a perspective of the Lower Bucks County Chamber of Commerce and how this affects our competitiveness as a business environment. And I think to multiple people's points, Bucks County is a desired place to work and live. I think that it's fabulous being a business owner and a resident of Bucks County to find this discussion here, because without this, I would have to be totally in the dark of where to go. I think it's amazing to hear from Georgann and what Penn Community Bank's doing. I think I wrote down that they're already in the forethought of getting in front of these issues, which I think shows the dedication of our workplaces, and specifically the community bank, and what they're looking to do to give back. I think that's awesome. From an employer standpoint, my wife and myself as a small sole proprietor, we have 3 children. One of the first stories I think about is when I was in my early 20s and I had my first son, and 2 days later I had to go back to work. And I just had a brand new child. I have no idea what I'm doing. And then I have to go back to work and now adjust to how do I work and take care of this child and, you know, and the mother and all these things. So I think it's a great discussion. I am very pro for this. Personally, as an employer, I think people are looking for no longer a job. Nobody wants to get a job. You want to be part of a team. You want to have that culture feel where you feel like you're taken care of. And I think this is something that really highlights that the employers that are listening to the discussion, that are asking the questions, that are looking to implement that, have that care for their employees. So I really only see positive things out of it. I mean, all the statistics that I'm looking at and reading, it's all positive. There's no negative. There's, you know, it's the thought on the cost, which is really the only objection, I think, would be I mean, if this was free for employers to implement, I don't think there would be an employer that would say no to it. So I think the cost piece of it is the discussion. But as far as what I can contribute to the conversation, I hope that helps. But I think from the business community, and Dan and Donna, you're doing a great job with this. Thank you, everybody, for here. I'm just really excited that we are able to highlight this conversation and be a place where these answers and these questions are being talked about. And so, thank you.
Well, that's terrific. Thank you so much. So, Matt Domenick is somebody that we recently started talking to about this, and he works in the insurance sector. And in talking with him, we're like, is what we're saying making sense? Like, our view of this, does this really actually work for small business? Is this a good thing? Because obviously we're the kids group, right? And so we want to make sure, and like I said, before we even stepped into this, we had meetings with brokers from across the country and insurance companies. But in talking with Matt, he just started talking about a lot of aspects to this that are good for small business that we actually didn't have enough expertise to be able to speak to. So he's with Domenick Financial, his own company, but I would love for you to share your thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to be here. Now, I would say in the insurance industry, I'm a little bit different of a group of benefits broker. You would say our focus is working with businesses that are startup type businesses. They are newly in business the last couple of years or so, and then they want to be able to provide benefits and reward, recruit, and retain employees, but we spend the time to educate them on how that all works. One of the biggest things that ends up coming up with our clients is the cost associated with having a group benefits plan. But they view that it's important for them to have a group benefits plan for their employees, and the employees are looking for that when they go to apply for a job with them, or if the employer is recruiting those employees. A good thing about being under 20 employees in the state of Pennsylvania is that you don't have to provide group benefits. And what we're finding is that businesses are making it a priority to offer those benefits, even if they have under 20 employees, or 50 employees, sorry. And so what they're doing is they're coming to us and they're saying, how do we make this work? And so because of that, we are also a broker on the state exchange. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Penny. Penny is an incredibly valuable resource for self-employed individuals and small businesses. And so we coordinate with the state. We educate the owner on how to use the state insurance or subsidies from the state, how that marketplace works. And then if it makes sense to them, we will help their part-time employees. And if they can't provide a group benefits plan right off the bat, we will help educate their employees, and we're a liaison to the state if they need it, or if they would like it. But one of the things that we've sort of run into over the last couple of years is that in terms of pregnancy and salary continuation or paid leave, there is an issue as it relates to companies that are trying to create their own benefit structure and then sort of build that over time. There's a hole sort of there. I mean, you can put in place, you have the health insurance. Most of the time, when we work in the service industry, so like hospitality, health, wellness, these companies don't have the money coming in to pay a salary continuation or to supplement income. Most of their workers are working on an hourly basis. And so they're looking for their workforce to be productive. And the issue is that there isn't much in the way of, insurance products. So we've had to, for example, partner with Primary Care Platform, which we will use for illnesses. And then we can do like an on-off work injury plan that kind of puts a Band-Aid over the situation if someone can't come to work because of a sickness or an injury. As it relates to pregnancy, we've had our clients, which is one of the most, I would say, popular topics to talk about, is how do we, if one of our employees goes out for pregnancy, how do we address that? In the state of Pennsylvania, a normal pregnancy is considered a disability, and so the benefits are limited within short-term disability policies, which I don't know much about the history related to that, but employers find that it's not enough, and in the short-term disability plans that they put in place, they generally are too expensive for these types of companies who are trying to grow. And so I find it really important, and some of my clients who've also signed this letter find it incredibly important to have a program like this. Being in the insurance industry, I believe that having a base level of benefits is incredibly important, because private insurance companies, if they can, they're going to come up with a product. And so then these employers can put in place something that, in my opinion, is enough to help their employees. So yeah, I think make it mandatory and then make it enough, or the ability to have enough. And we're very excited to educate our clients on how to put these plans in place and then make it affordable for them.
Well, the affordability is an important issue. You raised that very specifically, and Georgann. So Georgann, you said you guys do short-term disability and you cover the cost of that.
We cover the premiums, yes.
Yeah, and so one of the benefits of passing a paid leave program in the state is that companies who are bearing 100% of the cost of a short-term disability program would then be sharing that cost across all employers, and 50% of it, at least in the House bill, would be paid for by the employee. 100% of it in the Senate bill would be paid for by the employees. So businesses would, in the House or Senate bill, be relieved of at least 50% of the costs of what they're currently paying out in short-term disability costs for pregnancy or medical leave. I mean, there's other short-term disability costs. But for those packages right now, I remember talking to PNC and I'm like, right now you guys are covering this all on short-term disability and you would be relieved. It's, probably for PNC, I forget the number, it was years ago, I was talking to them about this, but it's millions and millions of dollars that they are currently spending themselves that would be reduced because it goes across all businesses, and secondly, because 50% of the cost would be paid for by the employee. So you would see a reduction in business costs. Although you would be paying for 100% of your employees into the pool, but at least on the PNC back in the envelope calculation, they thought they would be saving money. Now, every company's going to have to look at that. You have 300 employees, so you're going to be paying 0.5% of payroll. Is that less or more than what you're paying in short-term disability? You're going to know that I'm not. But you're also going to have a standard program that's longer, and it is a standard benefit that you could then administer, right, with your employees. So I just wanted to offer that up. You asked about how it stacks with the unpaid family medical leave under the federal law. You're absolutely right. This is a more robust benefit package than the federal FMLA. It's competitive with the states that have passed this. That's a conversation that I think employers are going to want to be having with their lawmakers. How does this compare to federal family medical leave? How does it compare with Jersey and New York? We can sit around the table so you can see Jersey and New York, which is your competitors, right? And see, do you know down off the top of your head if they're at 16 and 20?
If they're at 16 and 20, yeah, so New York goes up to 20, Jersey's 12.
Jersey's 12.
Yeah.
So they need to make a decision like, is that benefit, should we bring that benefit to be more in line with Jersey because that's your competitor, right? So we're in a process of thinking about that, but New York is at 20, I think Connecticut's at 20, right? Yeah, Massachusetts?
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Combined, when you combine the two.
Yeah, so you have, that question about how does it compare? It is more robust. The federal medical leave, FMLA, was passed a long, long time ago before people were really caring for sick family members. And so it's a really good question to think about that. You also talked a little bit, I wanted to go back into who pays and just say, I think that is the ultimate, Rick said, the conversation. In the Senate bill, it's 100% on employees. In the House bill, it's 50-50 split. In the norm in these states, has been a 50-50 split. One of the things about the 50-50 split that I think is why we see relatively modest utilization rates is in both packages, employees are contributing. I think it's really important that employees contribute because it has somewhat of a moderating effect on utilization, just sort of in your subconscious, right? Whereas if it's all employer paid, it may not have that same effect. There's the possibility that there's no state that has passed this where it's 100% employer paid, right? So the compromises in that are 100% employee. And it's hard for House Democrats to think of a bill that would be only employee paid, not shared contribution, because the benefits of this accrue to employers and the employees. So that's where they're coming from. And so it may end up in the compromise between the House and the Senate, a 50-50 bill, but right now they differ on who pays. In that
So who's paying, what are we paying for? Are we paying their wages? Are we
The
paying
pool
a
pays for
premium?
premium.
Of insurance policy
Yeah.
that will then cover
Yeah.
their wages?
You're exactly right.
Okay.
So you're paying a premium that would be capped at 1% of payroll, but you would be half of that in the House bill. And it's a premium that would cover the wage replacement.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Other questions?
You're at 100% wage replacement?
90.
90.
It's up to 90, depending on how much you make, it would be up to 90. But if you're a higher earner, you're taking a big chunk out of your pay more often. The maximum you can receive is the median average weekly wage. It's about, right now, it'll be about $1,400 a week as a median.
So a high-end earner is not gonna get 90. A low-wage earner, because they're below the median, is gonna get up to 90. Yeah.
And that's why you see that utilization rate where if the program has 16 weeks, it's still likely that somebody might take 12 or 13 or whatnot. So they're still
Because
losing income.
They're losing income. Now, employers can do whatever they want above that. So if an employer has an executive policy that offers an executive 100% wage replacement for leave, they can still do that. This is the floor, not the ceiling.
Yeah. So when someone goes out on leave, then the work remains.
Yes.
So we cover the work various ways.
Yes.
As I'm sure everybody does here.
Yeah.
We carry on the retail side a float pool of people that is, an expense in our
Yeah.
budget of, for us, it's like $350,000 to carry extra people to cover when other people are out. And so that's where my question comes. We know under FMLA, we have to cover up to 12 weeks. And, that's, in other areas, my own department, we had somebody out for 12 weeks last year. I had to hire a firm to do the work because we just didn't have folks to do that. So there's all kinds of things happening, and I guess my point is, for 12 weeks, I guess that's kind of baked in. We're used to it. It's been around for years.
Yeah.
And we can't fill that job permanently because it's job protected until that person tells us they're not coming back, which typically doesn't happen, but it does happen from time to time. And then we're free to go to roam the airplane, as I say. So that's my question: is job protection now 20 weeks?
In the case for bonding, it would be 12. For medical, it would be 20. So the protection would go to 20 under the current versions of the law.
Okay.
Other questions? Yeah, please.
Just for the Congressman, what are the biggest headwinds you face with getting this through and getting it passed? And if it's just a matter of working through between the Senate and the House and compromising there, what's the expectation on the time frame that it takes to get this through?
Good question. So I think one of the biggest issues right now, Pennsylvania is a very diverse state, and we have a rather larger General Assembly than a lot of these other states do. So we have very different interests represented at the table, whether you're in the House or you're in the Senate. And you think Philadelphia, you think Bucks County, and then you think somewhere like York County or Armstrong County, very different places. So that's part of it, is that it's viewed as a tax increase on certain, either the individuals or the businesses. So that's a huge issue that's being viewed that way. It ends up being money out of people's pockets. It's money out of a small business person's pocket, but I think long-term effects, it makes up for it. And I think long-term effects, the family or the individual working realize, it's a couple bucks pay period, but I'm here for 5 years and I get pregnant or someone gets sick, I'm probably going to make up most of that money back anyway with this time period. So that's a hard thing with any type of piece of legislation, is that level of diversity. The fact that we have willingness in the Senate, willingness in the House is very optimistic, as I said earlier. I think they can come into a room like this and have that conversation. But we're also in an election year, and we're kind of running out of legislative days to have those conversations. So to answer your question of when it could get done, if I could answer that, I wouldn't be in this position. I think you could lightning could strike, and we could see a deal brokered. I think it's also probably likely that one or two of these bills is going to pass each chamber, and then we're gonna have to come back next term, in January, and try to keep that momentum going and try to find a compromise between the sponsors of these bills.
I guess the big reason, I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. My wife purchased short-term disability through her group benefit plan, but she paid a lot more than she would have had to pay in a plan like this. And that's why it's I understand it's an adverse state. I'm curious at the people that are against this, how often they're talking to their constituents and really hearing or explaining that and educating them that you might actually be paying more by not doing this than you would be by doing it. And of course, I want to know what time frame, because we might want another child. Do I got to buy disability or not? I'm just joking about that.
I think I'm going to disability insurance. So for the short-term disability, what was the benefit period?
12% and 60% of the pay, or 12 weeks, sorry. 12 weeks, 60% of the pay, yeah, because we put both of our kids back in daycare at 12 weeks. My company does offer, I work for a large company, so they offer leave, but in my position, I'm not salaried. So if I'm not working, then I'm not growing my business, so it doesn't really matter for me, though I do technically get 12 weeks off, just through my company. But again, I work for a big national company, it doesn't really, so I would have at least had that, but again, she had 12 weeks that she was able to utilize, and then now we're taking on daycare bills at 12 weeks also, so.
Yeah, well, that's probably the highest benefit I've heard.
Yeah,
Most,
12 weeks paid or unpaid?
12 weeks paid at 60% of her salary.
Under her disability free policy through.
Under her short-term disability policy, yeah.
That she purchased individually
Through
or?
her group benefits, but, now she's part-time at the employer because she started her own business, and now she's a sole proprietor business owner, and we don't necessarily have that luxury anymore,
Right.
so.
yeah. Well, we've seen like the benefit capped at 4 weeks for normal pregnancy, and then for
C-sections.
C-sections 8 to 13 weeks.
Yeah.
But the biggest issue that we've had is for self-employed individuals. If you buy an individual short-term disability policy, they exclude normal pregnancy, which has been an issue for medical professionals. Like we have nurses that are per diem or something like that. So something like this would be
Would
just
solve that.
amazing.
Yeah. So to answer your question about do they talk, yes. In fact, across the state, paid leave is an extremely popular issue. Republicans and Democrats agree that they want to see the lawmakers do it. It polls, I think, look, to be fair, Democrats are more strongly supportive of this than Republicans, but an overwhelming majority of Republicans want to see this happen, either for bonding or for taking care of sick parents, for the peace of mind and caring for a loved one. So I think what we're trying to do is generate the conversation so that lawmakers hear directly from people like you and from businesses that this is really something that needs to happen. And I think one of the things that, the way our democracy works is they respond to what we put the pressure on them for. So doing this, hearing you, we're doing this across the state, we're talking to people all over to give the lawmakers the confidence to know that when they cast the vote, and yes, it will be a cost, somebody's gonna pay, there's no free lunch, that they're gonna have the support of people behind them to say this was the right thing to do. So I wanna thank the Chamber for having us here today. I wanna thank our state reps for listening and being part of this conversation. I wanna thank the business people here today because as you can hear, I think we collectively think this is a really important thing to do. There's ways to make everything better. And we hope that you'll help us spread the word. Get more businesses to sign the letter. Think about talking to the other chambers in Bucks County. Think about making sure that the state chamber knows that you think this is important so that our state lawmakers know that we have their back. That's really the goal. So thank you very much to the Lower Bucks Chamber for hosting us today. It was really great to be
Thank
here.
you both so much. This is incredible. I'm thrilled and happy to help and get signatures and spread the word. I think this is a really important topic for our business community and for our residents. I mean, I think when I think of what this would look like, I think this is going to help young people or those that are looking to do that pregnancy journey. It gives some peace of mind, like Representative Joe said. I think that is huge in one of the what do they call it, a life change. You know, when you have a life change, you have a baby, I mean, that is incredibly stressful
Right.
for all involved. So to have a little bit of, you know, your employer on your side is what I would word it. I think that's, you know, super important. So, and thank you both for
Thank you.
spearheading this conversation and having us, and hosting us. Thank you.
Thank you.